Thank you all so much for being here today. It's so exciting to look out and see a packed room for the set of conversations we have today. My name is Nina Besser Doorley, and I'm the Vice President of Policy at the Institute for Women's Policy Research. And I'm so excited to kick off our morning here at the Power Plus Summit here in beautiful Chicago by featuring not one, but two of our congressional allies. These are legislators who bring an unyielding commitment to creating policy change and uplifting women's voices in all of their work. And we're gonna keep you on your toes this morning here by switching things up slightly. So Representative Lauren Underwood had planned to come, but she had a last-minute unavoidable conflict. So she has graciously sent us a brief video message. So we're gonna tune to that. And then I'm so excited to welcome to the stage Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky after the video, because she is here in person. So let's roll the video.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, and I have the honor of representing the 14th District of Illinois in the Congress. I am so sorry that I could not join you all in person today due to a last-minute conflict, but thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you virtually. I would especially like to thank Dr. Jamila Taylor, the president of IWPR, for all of the work she does and her continued partnership in advancing women's health. I'd also like to thank my colleague and my friend, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, who is joining in person, and she is a tremendous leader in this space. Her leadership is admirable and so needed. Friends, when we discuss gender equity and women's rights, it is impossible not to discuss women's health, especially since the fall of Roe. As co-founder and co-chair of the Black Maternal Health Caucus, one of the largest bipartisan caucuses in Congress, I have seen firsthand how far we've come and how far we have to go when it comes to guaranteeing equitable and safe health care for American women. The United States is facing a maternal health crisis, and this crisis is getting worse, not better. In 2021, the maternal mortality rate was 89% higher than the rate in 2018, even though more than 80% of pregnancy-related deaths in the U.S. are preventable. This means that moms all across our country are dying unnecessarily. The causes are multifaceted, but we know that solutions exist, and we know what to do to end this crisis. We just need policymakers to invest in comprehensive solutions to end the maternal health crisis and to invest in the people, agencies, and organizations that are doing the urgent work. To address all drivers of our nation's maternal health crisis once and for all, we need to advance comprehensive policy solutions. I'm proud to share that Congresswoman Alma Adams and I wrote that solution. It's called the Momnibus, and the time for Congress to pass it is now. As the lead sponsor of the Momnibus, I was so proud to first introduce the bill with then Senator, now Vice President Kamala Harris. Since then, working with Senator Cory Booker, Congresswoman Alma Adams, and now more than 200 co-sponsors between the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, we've made huge progress. The Momnibus is a sweeping package of 13 evidence-based bills. It's the only federal legislation to comprehensively address every driver of maternal mortality, morbidity, and disparities in the U.S. It includes investments to grow and diversify the perinatal workforce, to improve data collection, fund community-based organizations, expand access to housing, nutrition, and healthy environments during and after pregnancy, and support moms with mental health conditions and substance use disorders. And we've made real progress in moving the Momnibus forward, including having the first bill from the Momnibus signed into law, the Protecting Moms Who Served Act, which invests in world-class maternity care for our veterans. And that's not all we're doing to improve maternal health outcomes for women. For fiscal year 2024, the Black Maternal Health Caucus secured over $100 million in funding for key maternal health programs, including funding based on the Momnibus. We know that for women to lead happy and full lives, they must be healthy, and that means maternal health and reproductive health must be a priority. Let me reassure you, Democrats in Congress, especially women, are working hard to make sure that our collective needs are not lost and our right to reproductive freedom is upheld. I am proud of the monumental investments made by the Biden-Harris administration in jobs, childcare, and health that are helping women all across the country. We have made so much progress, but I know there is still so much more work to do. I look forward to working with all of you to make our country a better, healthier, and more equitable place for all of our women across the country. Thank you so much for your time, and please take good care of yourselves. Bye.
Great, good morning. I want to start by saying thank you to Representative Underwood for lending her voice and perspective to this important conversation. We know there are many things going on at this moment, and we're grateful for her ongoing leadership and partnership. And it's my great pleasure to share the stage with Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I don't think she needs much by way of intro to this crowd, and particularly not here in Chicago, but I'm going to do it anyway. Congresswoman Schakowsky represents Illinois' 9th Congressional District. She was first elected in 1998 and serves as Chief Deputy Whip in the House Leadership and a member of the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee. She's also on the House Budget Committee and the House Energy and Commerce Committee, where she's been instrumental in passing some really landmark legislation during her tenure. And on a personal note, I had the immense privilege of working for Congresswoman Schakowsky for many years. My time in your office set me on the professional course that I'm on today, and you are a leader who taught me what it means to stand up for justice, for equity, and for rights. So I'm always grateful to you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I'm so proud of you, so thank you so much. Oh my God. Really, so great. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. Lauren Underwood is just amazing, as you heard all the work that she's doing, especially for moms, and I'm proud to be working with her. But this is a great time for women. I think women are going to save the world, so we have a lot of work to do, right? Right.
So to kick us off here today, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your path to elected office. You were a champion for women and families long before you were a congresswoman. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what motivated you to engage in policy change and to run for office.
Well, and I hope some of you here in this room who haven't thought about it before will decide to run for office. I was all about, even as a very young housewife at the time, that's what we called it, my children who are middle-aged now, I was raising a family in the suburbs. And this sounds like kind of a small thing, but at the time that I was mostly at home, I found that you couldn't find out how old the food was in the supermarket. There were no freshness dates, there was no nothing. So as a young woman, a few women got together. We modestly called ourselves National Consumers United. We wanted to know how old our food was. And at one point, the butcher in a store threw us out and said, if you don't like what you're seeing, go to somewhere else, or we'll throw you out of here, you geeks. I didn't even know what he was talking about. And so we ran a campaign to get dates on food in the supermarket, because that's what we were doing. We were trying to feed our children. Well, we became such badasses that we were actually able to win this. We had one share of one share of in the food stores. We would go to the meetings. Anyway, we after about a year of just harassing them and going on television and on the radio, we were able to win that. Well, you can imagine for young women, for a young woman, to have a campaign to win it was so, I couldn't quit. I thought, if I could do this, maybe I can actually change the world in a really significant way. And my girlfriends finally said, well, you know what you ought to do? You ought to run for office. I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I lost my first campaign. I ran for Cook County Board. I didn't succeed, but I learned a lot about how it is to run for office, that you have to learn how to walk into a room of total strangers, introduce yourself, and you find out that people are mostly kind. So finally, I ran for the state legislature. I won in Illinois, and then ran for Congress. And hey, guess what? I beat J.B. Pritzker. He ran against me. I know. I love JB. We're great friends. And he agrees that, you know, it's a good thing that he didn't win that. It probably wouldn't have been the governor of the state of Illinois, and I support him all the way. Yeah, he wasn't ready for prime time. Anyway, and it's been quite an amazing journey. And probably right now is the most difficult time we have ever seen. This is a really challenging moment, but we can do this. We can win elections. We can change the what's happening right now in a major way.
And since you won that first election, you've also won some really serious victories legislatively on the Hill. You've been, as a member of Congress, you've been instrumental in fighting for working and middle-class families throughout your time in Congress. Can I ask you, sort of really broadly speaking, when you think about supporting families, promoting economic equity, economic opportunity for all, what your priorities are at this moment in Congress?
Well, let me just say that I think one of my greatest achievements was playing an important role with Barack Obama in getting the Affordable Care Act and health care. And we're not there yet. Access to health care, quality, affordable health care for everyone, I think I would have to say is certainly a top priority. You know, and I mean that for people who are citizens of the United States and people who are not citizens of the United States. Everyone who is here should have access to health care. And you know, we're one of really the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't provide health care as a right. And I see health care as a right. So we have a lot of work to do to make the changes.
Yeah. Since you've taken us to healthcare, I want to talk about a reproductive health access. I think in this moment we can't not discuss what's happened over the last 2 years in this country. And obviously 2 years ago, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, created a new landscape where abortion is now banned in over a dozen states. It's heavily restricted in others. It's not here in Illinois. Illinois has gone the other direction and enacted additional protections. I hope folks coming in from O'Hare had the chance to see the billboard that I saw, "Welcome to Chicago, where abortion is healthcare." So you have conversations with everybody, with people here, in your constituents, in Washington every day. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've heard from constituents, from the folks you meet with in Washington, how this decision is playing out in their lives and the lives of people that they love?
Thank you, Nina. Right now, the most significant issue that is on the ballot today is the issue of reproductive rights. And we know that a number of states, that question is actually on the ballot. But I have to tell you, I'm old enough to have been around before Roe. And I remember friends in college who were so worried what was going to happen if they did become pregnant. And now, here we are. I never thought I would live in a country, and I remember so distinctly. This is one of the things you remember where you were when you heard the word that abortion now had become illegal. It was shocking that now my grandchildren, that's a phone in my ears, that my grandchildren, my granddaughters will not be able to have that kind of access. But I'm telling you, we can win this as early as perhaps next year if we fight hard enough. Because to take away this fundamental right, and you know, I think as much as people want to control their own bodies, and to say that women and the families ought to be able to make the decision, people also think, even those who don't support abortion think, really, should we have politicians and Supreme Court leaders making the decision about what you can do with your own body? How outrageous is that? And now they've gone further. We've had a majority of the Republicans in the House of Representatives vote against contraception. Are you kidding me? They have, said whatever controls women's has birth involved. They want to control all of that. This is a matter of a fundamental right that is being taken away. And we have to be completely not only outraged, but ready to fight back. And Kamala Harris, by the way, has promised that as president, she would make sure that the Women's Reproductive Health Act would become the law of the country. And if we don't win this election, we know that there would be a national ban. Here in Illinois, we have provided the most abortions of any state in the country to people who come here, about a 50% increase in people who come. But if the others have their way, we would not have any ability anywhere in the United States of America. This is completely unacceptable, and I want to tell you, my sisters and my brothers, we have to win this debate. We have to win it, and we can.
I want to ask you a little about, so we have a lot of people in the room who do advocacy work, do organizing work, and I want to acknowledge the ways in which you are an advocate with your colleagues. Obviously, you've been out in front on reproductive health and abortion access for a long time, and a lot of the work that you do is working to bring others in Congress along with you, both in terms of how they talk about the issue and how they prioritize it. And I want to ask you how those conversations may have changed in the last couple of years since the overturn of Roe, and how your conversations with your colleagues, how that sounds these days.
Well, the first time that we had a majority, even in the House of Representatives, for abortion rights was just in the last session, because we didn't have those votes. And as soon as we did, Judy Chu, Congresswoman, introduced legislation that also ratified Roe v. Wade. But I want to tell you something, Nina. It's not as much as what the politicians do as what the advocates do. As an organizer all of my life, I have to tell you, know your power. Because without the advocacy, it really doesn't matter much. It's the fact that people get mobilized, call and visit and pressure members of Congress. Because the one thing that Congress people can do is count. And I'm talking about counting votes. And if suddenly the phone starts ringing, people start visiting them, there are protests, There are signs going up. That is what really makes the difference. In fact, more than my colleagues. Because I think some of them just are entrenched in this view, but if they start hearing more and more, and right now they're afraid. They are afraid because the numbers showing people, it's, the vast majority of Americans, men and women alike, believe in reproductive rights. They're afraid now. You've heard Donald Trump saying, well, he's for in vitro fertilization. I don't believe anything he says, but he's in favor of in vitro fertilization. I've always been in favor of it. It's just nonsense because we know what they want to do. And so we have to continue to fight back. And when we fight, okay.
I want to ask you about another issue that ends up taking up a lot of airwaves. I want to ask you about LGBTQ, particularly about trans rights. We often hear, I know this issue is really important to you both as a policy issue and personally, and we often hear efforts to sort of pit women's rights and trans rights against each other. And as somebody who's been a longtime supporter of both issues, can you talk about why gender equity has to be trans inclusive?
Absolutely it does. Let me just say, as the proud grandmother of trans young women, who is right now teaching school at the same school he went to in Evanston in first grade and living his best life with his girlfriend. But I know that young trans people around the country and the issue of providing the kind of health care that they need has been controversial. We can't divide rights among each other, human rights among each other. And I have long been, well before my grandson became a trans young man, I have been a supporter. We have to put our arms together with people who are fighting for these fundamental rights to be who they are, do what they want to do, marry who they want to marry, and to be able to control their own future and their own bodies. So there should be no separation there. We have got to work together. I think the trans community is also with us, and we need to build those alliances and understand how, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we heard Clarence Thomas talking, well, maybe we ought to go further. Maybe we ought to rethink this idea of same-sex marriage. Maybe we ought to look at, and I'm sure he was thinking about trans. So who can we go after? And so I think we have to see the people who are fighting for justice, who are fighting for fairness for themselves, who are fighting for our rights, that we have to be together. We have to.
The last sort of policy issue that I want to ask you about, so we've talked a lot about reproductive health, obviously, and that's very, very critical in this moment. We also all know that women are more than their reproductive potential. And you have been a particular leader for older women, for seniors. You're co-chair of the Task Force on Aging and Families in the House. And we know that as women get older, they do face specific challenges, including economic challenges, access to health care. Can you talk a little bit about how you're fighting to promote security, stability, safety for older women?
Well, some of you may actually have parents or grandparents who you see are really struggling. It is tough to be poor to be old and poor in America. We don't have a long-term care program in the policy at all in the United States of America, and you're pretty much on your own. And the fact that women suffer through their lives of lower payrolls, because women have not made as much, are less equipped than men. And it's hard for the men too, because we are seeing right now threats to raise the age of Social Security, to cut Social Security. We have heard about policies that the Republicans want to do and to cut those things. And so what we need to do is to make sure that health care is affordable, that we know that they can live in a place suitable for older Americans. We know that older women don't have the health care and the home health care that they need. And so that's what we are really, really fighting. And as definitely someone in that category, I turned 80 2 months ago, and I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting. But I see so many friends of my age and younger who are, can't wait to get to Social Security age and to finally get some Social Security. And so this is a huge problem in the United States, that we have to have affordable housing, affordable health care, that we have to change so that we have an immediate transition for people who aren't working anymore. Women, I went to the grocery store the other day, and I'm telling you, I don't know how old she was. I wasn't going to ask you how old she was, but she was bagging. And I saw in her someone who absolutely needed to work, that she was not going to be able to live her life without doing something to get a paycheck, and she shouldn't have been. And so this is, one of the things that I've been working in well before I was a senior, to make sure that we think about health care, that we think about all the benefits for older Americans. And caregivers, some of you may be caregivers, and you find how difficult it is. We want to make sure that we pay home health care, people, people in the homes and relatives that will care for our older people. We need a whole revamp of elder care in the United States to make sure that you can live a good life in the United States of America, even in your older years. They used to call them golden years. They're not really so golden in this country anymore.
When you mentioned caregivers, so many of whom are women, and because we don't have national paid leave program in this country, we're not doing the work to support people who, I see Dawn there, shout out to Paid Leave for All, but we're not supporting the people who are trying to take care of their family members by giving them a way to step out of the workforce.
The care economy is very weak right now, and people who do this wonderful work, I work closely, for example, with the union SEIU, and people who do that kind of work, who are overworked and underpaid. We're trying to get ratios so that they are paid for the number of hours that they serve, get a decent wage, and can afford to do the work that many of them love to do, to take care of the elderly. And of course, child care as well is a huge problem. We know that Kamala Harris has promised to do portable to do the healthcare program for children that we know that during the pandemic actually reduced child poverty by almost half. The child tax credit, that's what we have to get. But, you know, then we have to look up to older people too and make sure that the people caring for them are getting paid what they are deserved.
Well, we are right at time. I do want to end on a really positive note. So can I just ask you, what inspires you most in your work? What keeps you coming back to your job day after day and gets you fired up and ready to fight each day?
Yeah, I am definitely a fighter. That was always my, put a fighter on your side was on my campaign posters. I can feel it and taste it right now, that it is time for a change. And I know this is not a political event, but I just think that everyone has to do their duty to not only vote, but to encourage everyone to vote, because the things that we're talking about are tangible and reachable. We can make these things happen. And we should, for the majority of Americans. If you ask the people what they want, they don't want to be rich and famous. They want to have a life that they can raise their children. They can have the basic necessities that they need. They can afford to buy a home. All these things are reachable. And it's really and truly, everyone has to feel a sense of responsibility because we can make this happen. And we can make it happen in actually just not that many weeks from now. But we can never, ever give up. This country has such tremendous potential. If we just lived up to the standards that we have set for ourselves, we could be the great country that we want to be. And so if everyone feels a responsibility, figure out what your role is. I know if you're here at this conference that you are committed to change, committed to help women and families to thrive, not just to survive, but to thrive. And so I just want to encourage you to feel powerful yourself. For the women here to be a badass, or what do they call it? What are the animals they say? To be a cat lady or whatever. You know, come on, let's all be cat ladies. You know, do what we want. And make the world better. So see it as part of your opportunity to make the changes that you want and that we all need. I know we can do it. I know you can do it. I look at this room of committed people. You're ready to do it. Thank you, Nina Besser, for being such a leader, and for all of you for doing this job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be a badass. Be a cat lady.